Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Welcome aboard, welcome aboard. Look at this lovely chat. I am so excited for tonight. I'll tell you what, we have had an absolute ball. For everybody that's took this ride along with us, Lynn's been here through the whole thing, and even when she was off on vacation, we were talking back and forth, and it's just been exciting. And watching that video, I threw it up there, the one on fun facts on the Revolutionary, war in that era, and it's about 2 months ago, I think I made that, maybe a little longer, and just reaching out into the research of that and starting off in the beginning, way before Lexington and Concord, before the Green Dragon, even under the elm tree in the Boston Common, when, people like Thomas Paine and John Adams and Samuel Adams and Paul Revere and so many civilians, will never know their names, little Christopher Cheever and, Sider, apologize. The little 11-year-old boy who was shot about a week before the Boston Massacre. He was a Boys of Liberty, and absolutely, townspeople and the people for that cause used kids on both sides. They were easy to get in and out. It's very much like Liberty Kids meets Oliver, with the Artful Dodger and that whole crazy pickpocketing gang. It's no different. The times are no different. It's the cause, the names, their surroundings, the culture, their knowledge, the tech that was available. That stuff changes, and I think that's one of the things that makes this so interesting. Going back almost 250 years, what were they doing then? Are we doing any of the same things? Are there any parallels? Are there any things that under the same conditions we would do the same? And if not, how would we do them different and why? It's very interesting. Human beings and characteristics of human beings. I think that's what really gets us the most. That emotion. What would we do? If we had 3 kids, we're on a farm, semi-rural, let's say outside the colony of Virginia, inside the colony of Virginia, but rural, outside of the Richmond. And all of a sudden, your oldest son and maybe your husband goes off to war, or maybe, your father and, your husband and, whatever, all the males be old enough. And what's old enough? We saw in there, young people were making huge dents in this era and huge chapters in history. Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette, 19 years old. Chris Sider, 11. Drummer Boys, as young as 9. Vixen Doe, you were telling me the powder. What were they called? Powder monkeys were as young as 6. Some of these kids. The women that jumped in, the Molly Pitchers, the Abigail Adams, even Martha Washington, and so many of the wives and girlfriends and daughters or whoever that followed the camps, kept them going, afraid not to, couldn't stay back. They were getting overrun by both sides. And there was bad on both sides. There was good on both sides. Heroes on both sides. Welcome in, Kristen, Vixen, Nightmare. And thank you guys so much. Hey, Froze, how you doing? Hola, baby. Hey, Super Chat, thank you so much for sharing. And that's a little bit of housekeeping I want to talk about too. Please share it if you can. If you can't share it, go and download my playlist of this. So many wonderful people have been a part of this. Download it. I've put them all together. Watch it with somebody young. Watch it with somebody who wants to look back on the nostalgia of it. Um, Talk about it. Make a trivia game out of it. Make it part of your homeschooling. Make it part of extra curriculum. You don't have to leave all the education up to whatever building you send your child off to for the day. You know, you do you. I'm not saying I never did. I'm just saying we all do it, whether it's ballet classes or karate classes or public school or charter school, or it might be a religious school, might be a special school, a vocational, whatever it may be. Don't leave it all up to them. Sit down, have a conversation. Ask people what it means to be where you're living, whether it's, here in America, in a state, if it's Virginia, Georgia, Iowa, Maine, Rhode Island, wherever it may be, or where you live, anywhere around the globe. Talk about the culture, talk about the people that were there before you were. How did you get to where you are? And, what's changed? What's good about the change? What's bad? You know, how do you make it better? You make it better by looking at people who did the same thing, people who proved that a small group of dedicated and devoted individuals could change the world. Margaret Mead. I paraphrased it, but I was close. It's the only thing it ever has. And this small group that meets on Sundays and Mondays changes a lot too, because we all connect in and then send it out. And hopefully it's all, good vibes. If you had a twisted kind of day, who hasn't? Come in here and just let it all go. Let's look back at some of the things these people lived through and powered through and struggled through and had to make choices, Do you think they thought about where they were going to be in history? What history was going to write about them? I know for a fact some did. Some did, because they wrote about it. I don't want history to remember me like this. I have to make the right decision. That kind of thing. So it's extremely interesting, and I think we see a lot of ourselves in it. And I hope that you'll watch it with somebody, or get take something home with you. We'll probably do one more show on this and finish it up. And I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to finish it, because it depends on how the week goes. Because as a floral designer, I can tell you it's been crazy. It's been ups and downs. And yesterday was nuts. And there were emergency room visits and unexpected things as usual. So it's life. I'm fine. Everybody is fine. I'm just saying things happen, and things get bumpy. So I don't like to promise something I can't, deliver if my week goes wackadoodle. But I'm hoping to do a cool ending for this whole thing. But how do you stop? It's been like a momentum. It's been crazy summer. So please like and share. If not, save the playlist. Go in and download the playlist into yours. Like the playlist into your YouTube channel. Thank you, Tuber Chat, for sharing it out in Reddit. It helps us so much, and I appreciate it. Also, hit the like if you can. We're fighting algorithms here. I'm totally throttled, and I'm not complaining. Hey, it is what it is. I'll take it. I enjoy my channel just the way it is. I'm not complaining, but it does get it out to other people. I like other people to see it, or at least have a choice to see it and not be hidden against their will. That's just crazy. That's not American. So American, speaking of which, the American Revolution, it has been an absolute ride. And tonight we're going to finish talking about the Culper ring. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about the characters and really balance it out. How Turn handled the historical facts and how much literary license they took, because it's important too to be able to sit down with whoever you might have a conversation with, whatever youngin or whoever, and or you yourself, to understand and be able to separate the facts from the fiction. Because if we don't remember exactly how it happened, how the hell are we going to learn from it and not repeat it? We can repeat the good stuff, but let's not repeat the bad stuff. We're smarter than that now, and we're supposed to evolve in the common sense of it all. And that's why this show has spent, this is a ninth night, but it's all about the alternatives and studying the characters of the people so we can apply it to our own life and how we're getting through our day and our week. Yeah. and we might, whatever battles we may be facing. How did these heroic people do it? How did some of the people that made the wrong choice, what happened and why? Because we can learn from it, but we can't learn from lies. We can only learn from the truth. And there's no sense in changing history, right? It just makes us more apt to repeat the same mistakes. That's my view. That's my opinion. You know, I hope some of you may agree with me. If not, stick around. Maybe you can teach me something. Okay. So tonight we are going to have the lovely Lynn Monet with us. She is an author, among many things. She's able to discern in a way I wish I could, because she has been at an end of life healthcare professional for multiple decades. And however you look at that, whether you call them, I think is it a doula? Am I getting that right? So many different cultures have so many names for it, but it's such an honor to be able to be with someone and have that peaceful, you know, goodbye or so long, that transition, you know. I've been fortunate enough to help people I cared about do that. And, you know, there's nothing like it, you know, that kind of kindness and that kind of oneness. And you never feel, I think, such a part of a universal miracle as being in that moment with someone you care for, even a complete stranger. My first experience with that, I was probably 6 years old when that happened. So I think all of that affects us. And Lynn can come on here tonight and tell us a little bit how this has been affecting her and going through the characters of human beings, even looking back 250 years ago. Help me welcome my friend, Lynn Monet. Hi, baby.
Hi.
Girl, you.
I wanted to make my boobs look good with your shirt on. So.
My boobs, your boobs never look better. I don't know, did that sound right?
Your shirt makes my boobs look good. There
we go. Your
hey,
boobs make my shirt look good. It goes both ways, folks. Go ahead, babe.
A terrible thunderstorm has just started outside of my house. That's what I was listening for, was the rain. So if we get knocked off, I just wanted to let you know.
Don't get
also, I've got 10-day-old kittens that I'm feeding a bottle every 3 hours. Yeah, literally a cat. The mommy cat died, but she had them in my my recycling bin, and I found them. Oh my gosh! Yeah,
How are they doing? You've had them a couple weeks now, right?
Well, I had another set that was dropped off here by a feral cat. I had 6 of those. And I took them, I got them in good condition, potty trained and everything, and took them at 7 weeks old to the Humane Society. So it's a no-kill facility, and they keep them until they're adopted. But the day that I came home from dropping them off, I found these 4 little babies in the recycling bin, and the mother was just kind of laying off to the side. She was very sick. So I left the kittens with her for about a day or so, and then when I went to check on her that morning, she was gone. So I took the kittens and brought them inside. But maybe I'll sneak them and I'll show you. They're adorable.
I'm sure they are.
Like little bitty sausages, and their eyes are just starting to open. So they're cute. But I'll be taking them also to the Humane Society in about 6 weeks.
Somebody in the neighborhood knows you're going to take care of cats. That's what's going on.
Well, either that or the cats do. I mean,
they are so drawn to light. You know, they are. They are.
Yes, they are. And also, since I've got my Bob in my life, and I'm getting acquainted with the elementals and fae, I believe that they also lead them here because they know that I will take care of them and do right by them. So,
say hi. Can you see the chat tonight, honey? Can you see the chat?
No, I can't.
Henry is saying hello. Henry is saying hello. Nightmare is here. And Henry's got beer for everybody. So line up, make a cue to the left of Henry. Henry, start popping those bottles of chocolate covered strawberries
for everybody.
Lynn, I brought. You're gonna laugh. I'm already in the fall and popcorn. You can't beat it. You can't. I brought gingerbread babies.
You did? Oh my goodness!
Gingerbread baby.
A buffet of
oh my
sprinkles.
Goodness.
To put on there that you can put on there, so you can make it all different kinds.
Oh, there it is. Doula. Doula. Did I say doula or gula?
You did. Death doula. Yes, you said it correct.
Right. I had it right.
A doula.
Right. A doula.
There are a duelist that bring in
A doula
babies, and
you,
there are
you doula
duelists
me.
that, yeah, something like that. That's what Bill says. But yeah, no.
You doula me.
So there are
Henry,
duelists that
hi
bring in life
Henry.
and duelists that leave out. Hello, everybody. I love you.
It's
Praise
wonderful. The
God.
energy is exchange. It's all about. We call it singing over. And I say we with a whatever friggin' brush you want to pick. I mean, people get so crazy. It's so funny to me because I'll do something. Listen, guys, I'm a cheeky monkey. Do not approach me in social media. It just depends on my general mood, what's going to happen. Like this morning, I put something out and I just waited about 30 seconds till somebody jumped on it and they were yelling, and why would you do this? Why would you do this? I said, bait, buy, click, buy, click, buy, click, just
Yep.
bait. It's like throwing chum out in the ocean. You know what I mean? It's like the sharks show up or whatever. It's crazy. Speaking of sharks, they've
It's
been
true.
crazy on the shore on the East
Oh,
Coast.
and jellyfish. The beaches have been so covered with jellyfish in the ocean you can't even go in the water.
Oh my
And
gosh. Over you
this
by
is like
you?
never happened. No, in Florida, my son. I used
What
to
do we
live in
eyes on?
Florida. Grew up in Florida. Things like that never happened. But my son went to visit a friend over on the East Coast, and he said that the beach was just layered with jellyfish, the big ones, the big blobs, and they were everywhere, and that you couldn't go in the water because they were just filled in the water when they were stinging people. So yeah, between that and
I've been
sharks.
there. Chesapeake Bay, Bridgetown. I lived in sometime around the time right before or after I lived by the Dismal Swamp in Deep Creek, Virginia. It's a blur. It's a blur. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we would go into the water. It would be so thick you'd come up with all these jellyfish. Are you kidding? I remember the ones with the long tentacles with the red in the middle, the red veins, whatever, and wrapped
Mm-hmm.
around this guy's leg. Oh my gosh, what a horrible thing. I remember how they would be kind of clear with a white clover in the center.
Yes,
I think I
exactly.
remember something like that. And
Yes.
here in Jersey, it was the horseshoe crabs you'd step on. They'd be these horrible prehistoric looking brown things with a long speary kind of tail. Oh God. Why are you going in the water? And people are walking on the sidewalks in Florida, and alligators are. I'll never know the difference. Don't try to school me on gators and alligators and crocodile. I don't. Just yuck. Okay, they're all the same category. They might as well be land sharks, and they're coming up eating people and their dogs.
Yep, yep. Out of the intercoastals and the
Land
lake and
sharks.
yeah, and the canal areas in Florida, they're coming up into people's backyards and chasing
Mhm.
down their dogs and stuff. Yes, absolutely.
And dogmen in the national forests, and there's no place safe, Lynn. We
No,
might
well,
as well
and
just
plus
stay
there's
here and talk about the Revolutionary War and talk about spies and
that's
stuff
right.
because you can't go outside. The crickets will get you, the land sharks, the
Oh my God. In Louisiana, when I was there, they have flies the size of quarters and they will chase you down and take chunks of meat off of you. They're so bad. But and not only that, there's all of this interdimensional thing going on in the portals where,
it's true.
anything could, all of a sudden something could pop out in front of you and grab you and take you in that portal.
Oh
So
my
it's not
gosh.
just the criminals at large, it's also this
It's
etherical thing that's going on as well.
it's insane. I mean,
Yep.
I think it was 3 weeks ago somebody, oh gosh, I started telling Steve about it, but all of these people are complaining about portals opening up in the Pine Barrens. And I'm like, all these questions. I have questions. First of all, what are you doing in the Pine Barrens? Stay out of the Pine Barrens. It's creepy. It's no good
Mm-hmm.
can come from it. And stop looking for the Jersey Devil because what if you find him? Not that. That's
Yeah.
probably one of the stories I've always said it that I just kind of like, it might be something out there, but I don't think it's Jersey Devil. But that's just me. The living that's out in the Pine Barrens, you got to worry about right now, let alone cryptids, dogmen for sure, but and probably Bigfoot as well. But talking about portals opening up, I mean, all this information on portals coming. I think they're messing with too many, pushing too many buttons. They're opening CERN, or they're messing around with this harp shit. I don't know. The veil's thinning. The
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
this, the whole shebang. The spells,
Mm-hmm.
everything else is just insane. And
It
every
is.
all of nature is showing it as well. You
Exactly.
know.
And they're talking about too this elevation of consciousness that all of us in this room are going through because if you weren't,
Yep.
you wouldn't be here. So you're
Yep.
part of you're on the wagon, on the train with us.
On the
And
wagon. Don't fall off
yeah,
the wagon.
I don't fall off the wagon. But the thing is what I understand about that is it's not going to be necessarily like when we leave the third and go upward. We're still going to have our bodies, but it's going to be kind of like people fade away out of our lives. Like all of a sudden
Not
you'll think of
fade away.
somebody and say, I haven't seen this person in a long time. I wonder what happened to them, and they're just gone. You just aren't in touch with them anymore, and you're with people more so of like mind. So, and the other people are going to get kind of left behind, stuck in their three-dimensional
Poor
world of,
things.
the mundane and
I saw
all of that sort of
several.
thing.
Saw several this morning, and I'm just like, you poor things. You don't realize I'm not going to engage with you. I've just, it's whack-a-mole. Social media whack-a-mole. That's what it
It
is.
is.
Like,
It is.
I
And
get a little cheeky the first cup of coffee, and you're like, a couple cat pictures. Let me throw a little chum in the water. And then,
there,
and then they're yelling at you like they're going to make a difference in your life. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I don't understand unmitigated gall of the whole thing.
the
It
difference
blows my
between,
mind.
I know, I hear you. The difference between people is becoming more obvious because some people,
Lord help us.
it's hard living in that duality of two worlds where when you're
I
in
don't
the
think.
in the upper dimensions, you are, it's wonderful, you're connecting like now tonight, we are all are happy to be here. This is a joyful occasion, we have fun here, all good things. But then we have to step back into the reality of the third dimension, which is paying taxes, going to work, fixing the flat tire, you know what I'm saying,
Oh,
all of
speaking of
that.
flat tires, that's what I had yesterday.
Oh
And
no.
it's just a ways, it's just how you handle things. I was extremely lucky. I had wonderful people around me that just by the time I went and got this, I came out and it was half off. My son took care of it. Turn around here and he, then, Mario jumps in and then they both take care of it and he puts it back on. It's like I didn't have to worry about it. It's like, whoa, I'm so blessed.
There you go.
It's like you get
Absolutely.
times in life you've got to do things yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning on the side of the road, and other times you turn around and the things that you've done in your past pay off. You know what I mean? Things come back to you. So it's just, you got to keep that going. You got to keep
You
that
do.
going. And
Your
Henry
thoughts.
says things are all calm in Wisconsin. And there's no gators, no crabs, and no jellyfish. That sounds like a sell to me. I'd say all aboard for Wisconsin. What do you think? You
I
know,
hear that.
just
I
can't.
hear that. They don't
You can
have.
bring
They
your
don't.
crazy with you, but not your crazy ways.
Yeah.
I don't understand those people that flee certain places and then bring it with them.
They
It's
don't
like,
have any threats of tsunamis there either. I mean, California's supposed to get hit. My state's supposed to get hit on the east side. I mean, all this craziness that's supposed to be shifting and changing.
asteroids,
Um,
dinosaurs,
yeah.
mosquitoes,
Yes.
monkeys with
Everything.
pox. They got. Do we have murder hornets again yet, or no? Are we
I
past
don't
that one?
know, but
Is
those
it coming
things in
back?
Louisiana must be related to that because unbelievable the welts and the chunk of meat that they take out of you, and they
Just
chase you
sure.
down.
Well, rebuke it. Rebuke it. Rebuke it. I ain't buying none of it. Who's it? Cheese? We got cheese. Who brought cheese?
Oh,
I
good. We'll
love
need a
cheese.
little
Oh,
wine to
cheese
go with
curd.
that.
You can keep it. Oh, Derek got
Ooh,
a
ooh.
great ghost picture on his channel. Everybody go over there. Mods with somebody. Derek, drop your own channel, honey. Go over there and see that picture. He was driving down the road. I think I got it right. Snapped a picture. Felt something like, I'm not sure why. Snaps a picture and got a white mist, like an apparition coming at him, coming at his
That's a
car or whatever.
yeah.
Over on his channel, he gets a lot of good stuff over there. Everybody go over there and sub Eric's channel,
The
Derek's
the
channel.
white the white mist is ectoplasm, and it is a portal for them to step in and out of. So yeah, definitely he got something.
I have some money's left in my fridge. I
He,
don't eat cheese. Oh, yeah, cheese curd. What is that anyway? Is that like cottage cheese? Am I assuming that
I have
that's
no
what it is?
idea.
I'm a Vermont cheddar kind of person. I like
There you
that.
go.
There used to be a thing. I absolutely loved it. It's going way back. Maybe somebody in the chat remembers. It was put out, I believe, by Cracker Barrel, or it might have been Hickory Farms, and it
Hmm.
was a little clay brown pot with a wire top with a clay, pottery. It was pottery, and it was cheese, and it was cheese spread, and it was like the best extra sharp cheddar cracker spread. It was the best in the
Yeah,
world.
I
I think
think
it
that was that Hickory Farms. I think
was
that
it
it kept they were giving
Farms
this
or
package,
Crock-Pot.
something like that. Yeah.
It was something, but man, the stuff that you can't ever find anymore. And sometimes you'll see things that you think are from your past, like say Christmas ribbon candy.
Yeah. Bear
and they
with me
try to
1
sell
minute.
it as the same, and it's not. You're okay. Are you okay? There she goes. But she'll be back. And then you go to get it, and it's not even close to what it was. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's an Oreo cookie or it's not the same. What can be the same is what you put into it, though. You know what I mean? What do you got? A what? A tick? Bright red tick? Ugh, gosh, you can keep those. Listen, I'm hearing vanilla extract keeps mosquitoes off. Listen, it's got to be the real thing. Now, listen, these things work, and then people will badmouth them or whatever and say, "Oh, I tried this, I tried that," and it's like a clinical test. You have to ask them, "What did you try? And what did you dilute it? Was it real vanilla extract, a real thing, and alcohol? Because that's what helps disperse the essential oil of the vanilla. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like a carrier. You got to think about it, like an essential oil perfume. Okay, so you need that carrier. So if you're using imitation vanilla out of your mom's cabinet, that she bought for baking, because regular vanilla is kind of expensive. The real stuff is going to be higher. Back me on this, bakers, because I'm not, I'm no Betty Crocker here. But it works. So does mint works pretty good. It depends on the mint. Depends on the leaves you're using. You have to get a lot of the oil. But oh, thanks, Derek. I'm glad you dropped that. What is it? Extra sharp cheddar without the yellow dye from Vermont. Yes, it's a little closer. Not sure the brand. I don't either. But it was an actual clay pottery. It was brown with the, how you have like the kind of the drippy foam around the edge. It almost looks like beer, beer foam that's coming down the mug, and had a really cool wire top to it. But I'm going back to the 70s here. Good luck finding that. They might have something similar, but it won't be in that cover. So while Lynn's doing her thing, I thought it would be neat. I threw up that little thing in the beginning. There she is. Basically, the last part of this is getting a little bit more defined on oh, look, on our characters of the oh, look at the baby. I see the baby up here. Oop, wait, let's get you back. Trying to get you bigger.
Apparently the
No.
thunderstorm woke them up, so they're here.
Oh no. That's a little
I had
bigger.
three little heads.
There's a baby. Now do it. You got her still?
Yeah, hold on just 1 second. I had three little heads
No.
peeking over the top of the cardboard. Whoops, hold on, sweetie.
Well, you do what you got to do, sweetie. I'm going to play a video, and you go ahead and feed that baby, because I know what that sound means. I know what that sound. Hi, sugar. You get something to eat.
Get something to eat. Out.
Oh, look at them. All right, you do what you got to do, and I'm going to play this vid, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, sweetheart. All right, so anyhow, I wanted to say this part here, that basically I'm going to get a little bit more in depth on a couple of the major characters in turn. And because, again, like I said in the beginning, it's important to, if you're watching this, whether it's 11/22/63 and they're telling you that, Lee Harvey Oswald was the only shooter again, and they're mixing up characters, and that's what you're going to remember because that was your last visual. I want you to kind of at least be able to discern when you're watching turn, because I highly recommend you watch it. All 4 seasons is absolutely fantastic. And then talk a little bit more about their sympathetic stain, and how they threw down their codes, and it really was kind of old-fashioned in the ways that they did things, but it worked, and it's still, some of them are still used today, and that's just a testimony of how how effective they are. So by this time, we pretty much are understanding a little bit more of the in-depth importance of the Culper ring, about how Washington, this was by no means the first shot at it. We know that. We know about Nathan Hale. We know that there was multiple other attempts at it. But until this point, they had been using soldiers, officers, and sending an officer in uniform or out of uniform, because immediately once you're out of uniform, you're a spy and you're hung as a spy. it was a big it was a big hurdle to get over, you know, and it wasn't working. And they tried a couple of other things, and that wasn't working either. So when Major Talmadge got a hold of this idea of using some people that he knew most of his life that are already in the town close to New York, where the British, of course, are holding on to New York and they want to get close to it. Setauket was the answer. That's where Talmadge was from. So Washington listened and he let Talmadge kind of take the reins on. Of course, he was there the whole time. You know, neither one of them really did all of one thing in that. They really worked together on this. And Talmadge would go out and talk to each person and try to get them on board and try to get, you know, the people within the camp that were in the military to work with him. But very few, very few. So the story behind the Culper ring begins back in 1776. It really started that early when George Washington was really trying to work out the kinks of how to use the spies. It is by no means the first spy group because the British had it, the French had it down, Spain, Spain had it down. So many different cultures already did similar things, but this was different for Washington. Everything was new to the Continental Army because nobody had done it on the same terms before, right? Organically almost. Captain Nathan Hale, yeah. So we know that Nathan Hale didn't work out for Nathan Hale because he didn't have quite the personality. They were just picking people that were volunteers. They weren't going for the character of the person. Nobody thought about doing that. I don't understand how you overlook something like that where if you need snipers, why aren't you using the best shot? You know, why aren't you seeing who's your best shot and sorting everybody and going, hey, those are my snipers, these guys who can ride horses and shoot from, you know, and actually hit a target while riding a horse. That's my cavalry. You know, my leaders are over here. You know, why aren't they doing that? It really boggles the mind. But until von Steuben got there in Valley Forge, you know, until Washington just said, hey, you know, I need somebody to sort this. You know, I need somebody that's going to take control of this and teach these guys how to be soldiers. The same thing had to be done with spy ring. And we watched a little thing not too long ago. I guess it was last episode where we talked about George Washington walked through his gardens and showed us how he did his farming, where people were, you know, ridiculing him for how he was handling rotating crops or letting some of his fields go fallow for a couple of years and things like this. He did the same thing with his soldiers, right? So once he got that a little bit, you know, under control, he could fine tune it. And what he fine tuned was the Culper ring. And most of it was due to Major Talmadge and his ideas. So what I gathered here for you guys is, if I can find it, I know I've got it right here, is a little bit of one of them, a really fantastic guy, and I'm going to bring him up in a minute and show you something else first. But his name is Mike York, I believe. May have that wrong. I'll pull up the correct stuff. And he runs the American Revolution podcast, and he's just fantastic. And he'll go through years of just taking, you know, section by section by section and really digging into it. And he's great authority, obviously, on the subject. Rose, have you ever heard of him? What you got going on? Was his wife and kids there? That painting was interesting. Whose wife and kids, honey? Wait a minute. Oh, you should red lights. You driving, Froze? There's our Major Andre. I'll tell you what, man. I had no idea the actual J.J. Fields plays Major Andre, and I had no idea that he had been in a long-term relationship with Nev Campbell. I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. You know, I don't pay any attention to stars, but you know, I always liked her. I always thought she was a really great actor. But oh, you're home now, Froze. Good, good, good. So Nathan's hot dogs. Nathan's picture. Oh, I don't know, sweetie. I thought you were talking about hot dogs. Oh, Nathan Hale. Oh. I don't know. I don't know, Froze. I don't know if his wife and I've seen both statues of Nathan Hale up close. More familiar with the one wearing sneakers. Was he wearing sneakers? What? That's great. I don't know that painting, wife and kids. Um, wow, I don't know. I don't even know if he was married. I know he was a young guy, you know. But let's see. Anyhow, what do I have here for you guys? Boop, doop, boop. I wanted to start out with something fun, and I thought it would be neat. Let me see here. The baby kitten. Something that's near and dear to my heart. And that's chocolate. This is how they did it. Colonial chocolate, roasted chocolate, cocoa bean. This is a lot of work. Is that not a trip? Isn't that a trip? So that's a lot of work. And the reason I chose that one is I had to kind of grab that one instead of showing you another one where they were talking about how much George and Martha enjoyed drinking chocolate. Most of the chocolate that was consumed in the colonial states during that time, well into the early 1800s, was chocolate that they drank. And it didn't taste very much like the chocolate of today because it had no cream or milk in it or sugar. So you can just imagine. But it was actually at one time more popular than coffee. Of course, tea was the number one. But there you go. Isn't that a trip? Are you doing okay in there, girl? You doing okay? How about that chocolate? You good?
Yeah,
That's
I've
a
got
lot
some
of work.
chocolate on my strawberries.
I know. Well, that's a lot easier than going through all that mess. Can you imagine sitting there peeling all those cocoa beans? We never
No, I
think about
couldn't.
how much work went into something. If you think that's something, wait till you see the ice cream. We got ice cream coming up. That was one
Woo-hoo.
of George's favorites too. That's why I picked these two things. Here we go. Let me see if I can get it up here. Do. I think this is right. Do. Here we go. Come on, come on.
So the next time you pull out several dollar bills to purchase some ice cream, remember that our first president enjoyed this delectable dessert as much as you do.
There you go. So, can you imagine? I show you these things to kind of get you in the mood to understand that every time they say, we went from this town to this town, or we took a letter from Setauket to New York. It was 55 miles one way and, 55 miles back. When they say that they had to, cook breakfast or they went and made tea, they have to go get the water. They have to go through these long processes of everything that they did, whether they're doing laundry, whether we're going to talk about Anna Strong doing laundry, or, somebody else going from, just thinking about the 45 miles, I think it was was it Sarah Ludwig, the young 16-year-old girl that took over for Dawes and Paul Revere, because Paul Revere got captured, you know, and Dawes went one way. And I mean, there were so many different people involved in, the British are coming, which that's not what they didn't say the British because they were British, the redcoats, the lobster backs, the regulators, whatever. So you have to remember everything that they did. This is why, all their days were so long, Lynn. We think now, the things that we do and we complain about it. And I think that's one of the things we almost have too much time on our hands, like that song. Maybe that's why we've become, detached in so many different ways that they didn't have time. They had to survive. They had to fight whatever was going, on and, around them, but also everything like the disease and the whole thing turn opens up with Woodhull, excuse me, it's Hull. It's easy to say Hall though. It was a cabbage farmer who had a blight of maggots in his cabbage, and this
Oh, I
was not
remember that.
uncommon. It wasn't uncommon, where he was in Massachusetts, everything they had to fight for, whether it was you were growing wheat or corn or tobacco or whatever, there was all of these things. And it's amazing how anybody survived any of this, Lynn.
Oh,
What do
that's
you
for
think?
sure. And most kids didn't make it past 6 years old back then, partially because the farmers would birth babies with dirty hands. They didn't know about hand washing back then, so a lot of
All of
women
it.
died in childbirth as well. And I apologize. The lightning woke these babies up. They would have been
It's okay.
sleeping for another 2 hours.
Never
So
apologize for nature, baby.
they
I
they are
I had
they're
to go out.
cuddling each other and going back to sleep. So
Oh, that's awesome. I had to go out in nature today just to, to touch plants and, trim some things and stuff like that just to reconnect, because I think we all have to remember as light workers to do that. You have to take your shoes
yes,
off, walk in the grass or get in the dirt, whatever, because we have to reconnect to those things. Without them, especially looking at screens all day, or, I don't know what anybody has to do, if even driving in traffic will drain, you know. I pity anybody that's got to work in an office with a lot of electronics and stuff like that. I can imagine how draining that must be. Retail can be that way too. Anytime I ever had to work in retail, you kind of make the best of it. You try to make it, good music or whatever. I used to get a whole store singing, Sweet Caroline and stuff with the stupid music and stuff. Like I was hanging stuff, decorating the store, and you start singing, and people, before you know it, you hear people in another aisle go ba ba ba. You know what I mean? You
yes.
can change the atmosphere you're in, just by being you. And if there's a huge resistance and there's just you're hitting a wall, maybe you shouldn't be there. Change your situation, because you're going to hit those walls, coming up here. There's going to be people. It's the stand people. I'm telling you, it's a stand. If you're not, I'm not promoting King, but I'm telling you, it's a good story. Where everybody you feel that separation, everybody just naturally starts pulling away from each other. And before you know it, you're looking at each other like you're from different planets. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Kind of
Yes,
like that.
definitely.
So you've been watching Turn. What do you want to say about it before we start digging into some of these characters? Because I got this wonderful excerpts from this interview, and I'm just, instead of regurgitating with what I consider to be closest thing to an expert that I know of in this area. I'm just gonna let him tell you. So what do you think, Lynn? What have
It's
you
getting
so far?
ready to get it's getting ready to get juicy, people. Yeah, I mean, I saw some. I didn't expect, the Abraham Anna thing, and I didn't, yeah, it is. It's getting juicy, and a lot more people
That's
are
all
getting
made up, though.
involved.
That
Well,
part's all
yes,
made up. But
of
they
course.
threw that in there. This is very much. Would you not say it's very similar to the Rose and Jack in Titanic?
Yes,
Wouldn't you?
exactly. That never existed. No, absolutely. But
Right.
they have to have a little
But
bit of
it's just as
sex and a
hot.
little bit of drama in there. Yeah, to draw people.
Oh my gosh.
So
If you think that's good, wait till you get to the Andre scenes. Oh my gosh, him and I don't know why they played Benedict Arnold as such a in turn he's really characterized. I don't know quite how to say it. He's like he's such a warrior. In real life, this dude was such a warrior. I mean, he was a fantastic general. He had his men. It was one of those where his men would have followed him anywhere. Almost not quite like a Lee, more like a what froze? What's that guy's name? The Fox guy. Was it Fox Marion Fox? Give it a second because there's a delay here. He'll answer me. But that kind of thing where they would just follow Patton, follow him anywhere, just because we know that he's not doing it for fame. He's not doing it for any, and he really wasn't. He was just in it. I mean, he got wounded twice in the same doggone leg. So much so, I think it's a fabulous story that once he turned treasonous and, turned against us. And, that's story in itself that we've covered here so many different ways. They wanted to bury the leg. Washington wanted to kill him. I don't blame him. He wanted to kill him and bury the leg in, military honors in a military cemetery, and, and bury the body somewhere else, not on sacred ground. I mean, it was that deep. So, but they really made him like a fumbling, talking about the romance scenes. He was just like a fumbling idiot. And I think that comes out, and it's like in the episode, maybe season 3, I think it was, when they really start getting into Benedict Arnold, and the Peggy Shipman and the whole Andre thing. Again, they overstated that. But I'm going to say, after watching all of this, I really, really think, because we learned last week, she was the highest paid spy there was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's plain and simple. And out of all of that, that's like got to be the biggest shock for anybody, right? But it's the oldest way. But she was so good at it. She was so good at it. She fooled her parents. She fooled everybody. I think maybe the only person that really knew was Andre. And of course, they found in her possession, I don't think she was wearing it. She may have been. If she was wearing it, it was deeper. But in her possession was his hair in a locket, And that was also a little bit of a common thing. But I think it meant a little bit more for them. She's 16, and the real Andre, I mean, he was so well played by J.J. Fields in Turn, but he got his character down so well. Everything I've read about the real Andre was very well played on screen here. Now, how much have you gotten to see? Have they gotten to Andre where you are so far in Turn?
Yes, they've gotten to Andre. They're also one of the last parts that I remember is where they found the ability, that copier thing, where they found the ability to copy signatures of other people.
Oh, the double pen.
Yeah, the double pen. Well, it was something that Washington had that used that you could write 2 letters at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's so getting interesting because they're now sending around. Letters signing important people's names to it, like it's, for real. So it's kind of putting everything in a bit of a spin.
The whole shebang, whirl, twirl, and a spin, because
that's right.
That was one of Washington's biggest things now, guys. Like we've picked it up through the whole, all of these episodes. It's been interwoven all the way through. It's been Washington, from the get, right? Because we're growing with him, we're seeing how he's doing things at this point in time. When the Culper ring comes in, it's around 79. It's been a hard minute. This has been going on a while. Like I said, it was after von Steuben sorted everything, and he got his men kind of where he finally got the army he always wanted. Here we go. The money isn't coming in and the supplies aren't coming in, but we're handling it. We're able to move around a little bit more, and he's more settled. He pretty much always hung around right around New York. He wasn't far from it, 50 miles out, because he's got to keep an eye on the British. The British are moving up and down the coast, and they're playing, cat and mouse and all this other stuff. And Washington's favorite thing, no joke, was to send out disinformation. So number one in the whole spy ring was the letter, just the letter. And just like Lynn is talking about, having different signatures or giving somebody correspondence and sending a messenger out, there was nothing for him to send 3 different messengers out and get them caught, on purpose, because it's just a messenger. And most of the time they didn't kill a messenger. They just took the message and roughed them up. And, so it took a brave person to volunteer for that,
Yeah.
Because you're going in to get caught. Opposite of the spies like Nathan Hale, who was really trying to get through, but he was given no training, Lynn. It wasn't like they didn't tell him how to hide the letters on him. He got stopped and they said, "Are you a spy?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm a spy and I got stuff.
Yeah.
Here's all the things I have. Here's my diploma here with my real name on it." I mean, he just blah, 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 blah. He literally, it was that bad, right?
Yes. Yes.
And he had zero training. And that was the number one thing that Talmadge came through and kind of brought through. He said, "Look, we've got to change our tactics here. This is getting serious." And this is where they really dug in. So what I'm going to play now, I think this is a good time. Do you want to add anything before we get started on the characters and kind of splitting them up? Did you have a favorite character so far in turn?
You know what?
That's a good question.
I do. I like Abraham. I like, but I also like his, gosh, I just forgot his name. The guy with the curly hair and the beard. Oh, that met up with him with the cabbage.
Caleb. He's my all-time favorite.
I like him too. So it's a toss up between the two.
Yep, there it is. Thank you so much, Rose. Francis Marion. So this is one of the guys I said, like, his troops would follow him anywhere. Like a Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, which is a true story, by the way. And the movie that was portrayed in was pretty much Patriot, wasn't it, Rose? And then, oh gosh, every time I think of a swamp, I think of the people escaping during the Civil War and the Revolutionary War into the swamp to hide. Can you imagine hiding in the swamp? Whatever is so bad that you'd rather be in the swamp overnight, living in the swamp for weeks, months at a time. Are you kidding me? How bad is the world if you're doing this?
Right?
with the land sharks and the snakes and the anacondas and piranhas and stuff. Jeez, and the mosquitoes, the constant. Stop it.
This is sweating and hot and the mugginess of it just you.
How lucky are we? How blessed are we? You know what I mean?
Having to go to the bathroom in the woods with poison ivy for real.
Oh, stop. Oh my gosh. Yes, it's Mike York, guys. So here's a couple of excerpts from that and a little bit of, a couple of things. I can't show you turn because, obviously I'll get a copyright as soon as I get my Rumble. Listen, guys, I had a lot of plans, for Halloween. I wish I had my book done. Wish I had this. Time has gotten expensive, and to keep myself and my head afloat, just like everybody else out there, I've got to buckle down and do what makes me the most money and still try to keep this other stuff, what I love, alive, So I'm not able to sit down and spend hours and hours on everything I want to do. So, I have this, just like everybody else, I have a long to-do list. And, I wish I could have, Cabin 22, the book done, but I want it done right. I don't want to just do it to do it, So this Halloween, instead of having that, we're going to just do what we always do. And we're going to listen to it together. We're going to do 6 nights of Cabin 22. I hope you're here for it. If you haven't heard it, I hope you come by. Bring the popcorn. We're going to listen. Yeah, go ahead.
It's amazing. It's an amazing story. And the thing that is really remarkable about it is that Cisco did all the voices, and I don't know how fun. She managed to keep them all straight with the accent and the kind of the deeper voice of the masculine, and she did all of them herself, and she would switch weird. And it was so well done. I absolutely
thank you, sweetie.
Loved it.
It was spirit driven. I promise you. Anybody that's heard this, if you're new here, and we welcome you aboard. I'd like to say that it's not always this disjointed and just kind of like us talking on the front porch, but this is how it is all the time. So if you're here and you like what you see, or if you're just curious to see how bad it can get, please stay. And, hit the like and subscribe, because this channel could use all the boost it can get. And we're chill. We're cool. Welcome. Come on in. But, yeah, man, it's been a wild ride. That's for sure, Lynn. All right. So let's watch this, because I want to get into some of these characters, because, again, our biggest pet peeve, I think, has been what's true, what isn't true. And they really took off on some of these characters. But again, I think a lot of historical things do that. Some of them have a narrative and an agenda, and they change it for a reason. Some are just doing it to make a better story, like Lynn said with Anna and
Abraham.
Woodhall. Abraham, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And with them now, Abraham was a lot like he's portrayed here, and I absolutely love Bell is the actor. I love how he did it, but he wasn't as brave as let's not say that. He wasn't as strong and able, because he was kind of sick, kind of, I don't want to say fragile and frail, but at first he started out a little like that. He was taking care of elderly parents. He was a good guy. He was a farmer, and he was an ordinary person that found a footing to become an extraordinary human being, extremely brave. A lot of times people will talk about him, whether it's talking about his autobiography or whatever, that he kind of panicked a few times. Wouldn't you? You're on a horse, your cart, whatever you're, taking in, you're lying. You're going into occupied New York, and British soldiers, you got to go through sentry, they call them sentries or pickets, whatever, like a DUI checkpoint. Okay. You're going through, it's like, what are you doing? What are you carrying? They're going through whatever you have, your cabbage, they're rustling your cabbage. They're, flipping blankets, and they're, banging on your, you bothering your horses, banging on your cart. And, he's doing this, a couple of times, and they're getting suspicious. Like, why are you trading here? Now, he couldn't trade, with the opposite side. There were so many different rules. So there was a lot of reason for him to be nervous. So it's very flippant for historians to just say, he panicked and he didn't want to do it anymore, and he got nervous, and he wasn't courageous and all this other. I think that's horse shit, because the guy did it. It's very easy to point fingers. This guy is going back. He did not marry his brother's wife, like he did in turn. They threw all that together. He did marry Mary, but it was later on, almost after the war, to the end, after everything was done. He lived with his mom and dad. It wasn't that much of a turmoil, whereas his household was more than likely very for the revolution from the start, but they had to add that in turn as that friction. So that's like the beginning of the twist on history, I would say. Anything you want to add there, Lynn?
Nope. Yeah, you summed it up. It's getting very interesting.
Yeah,
So,
it really
good.
is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I
It's
can't
okay.
stop it when I throw it up there. I apologize.
You're fine.
It is, but it's so exciting. It's so well done. The
It
cinematography
is.
is blow you away. Their attention to detail and costume, as I said, I'm sure last week, just phenomenal. All of
Mhm.
those details, those close-up things are right on, and the tactics and the techniques. And I think something else they captured well, Lynn, was the stress of being in a town where you don't know if you can speak freely, or what is your neighbor thinking. When times get tough, it's almost like the witch trials in some way in mass, you know what I'm saying, because you don't know
You're right.
who's going to point a finger next. You don't know who's a Tory, who's loyal to the British, who's going to turn you in because they don't want to be the ones turned in. This is an age old tale,
Absolutely.
as long as it's not me and my family, we're just not going to get involved, kind of thing. And then the heat gets bad and turned up, and people start pointing fingers. And I think they handled it well throughout this. And I think that's a very important, I think it's almost its own character within the entire series, because even within their own families. And I think a lot of people have gone through similar, since the great, uh, what do you want to call it? The another con, if you know what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Back a couple of years ago, things shifted in families in a lot of ways. Um, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Thanksgiving dinners have never been the same. Let's just put it that way. So let's see
No,
what
that's
we've
right.
got here, because this is a wonderful podcast, and I put on here who it is. It's the I don't want to get the name wrong, but he does a great job. So here we go. A little nod to him. There's Crispy. Doesn't he look good? He looks so good in a tri-corner. Little tri-corner hat.
There's Crispy.
And this
There he
Crispy's
is.
doing awesome. There he is. This is a boy.
Mhm.
He's got so many wonderful hats. He spends hours in the mirror before a show, I'm telling you.
No doubt.
He's loving the Revolutionary War. Such a well done drama. Great actors. So many good ones. I love the guy who played Hewlett too. He was one of my unexpected favorites. He really was.
I agree.
I thought he was really done wrong, and it turns out, folks, he wasn't even there. He was there, kind of, but not really. You'll see in the end. So based on a true story podcast.
General Washington realized he needed intelligence about the enemy if he wanted to have an advantage over
Michael
the British.
Troy, guys.
And some of his earlier efforts, unfortunately, were quite amateurish. Many people are familiar with the famous spy Nathan Hale. I only had but one life to give for my country. He was kind of just sent into Long Island randomly without any backup or support or any way to hide the notes that he was writing, and the British caught him and hanged him. So the Patriots had to get a little more advanced over time, and of course they eventually developed the Culper spy ring.
Froze, was that the picture you were talking about, honey, with the little kids? I don't know if that's saying that Nathan Hale's wife and kids were there. I don't know if he was married. I can look up and see if I can get that for you for the next time. But one thing I know that for sure that it's showing here is that most of the town people around came to these things. Some of the British if the British were, in charge, they made the townspeople come because it kept everybody in fear and it kept everybody controlled. So it could just be to show that the townspeople had to be there. Not sure. What do you think, Lynn? Possible?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Patriots had to get a little more advanced over time, and of course they eventually developed the Culper spy ring. That's right. The Continentals made multiple attempts. Some of the spy rings they had in other parts of the country, but they did have multiple spy rings in the New York area as well, because that's where the British were for so long during the war. And yes, there were actually some other rings that were operating at the same time the Culper ring was running as well in the New York area. Yeah, well, I think it was nice that the show did try to follow the arc of history and go along with what events were happening, during the course of the war, happened during the course of the show. But they really did cheat on the dates a little bit. As we all know, the outbreak of the shooting war in the Revolution began in April 1775 with the battles of Lexington and Concord. But most of the fighting that first year took place around Boston, not really around New York City. The war came to New York and Long Island in late 1776, when the British Armada landed and conquered the region beginning in August 1776. Now, the show turn begins in the fall of 1776, just after the British invasion, which makes sense. That's when the war came to New York, so it made sense to start the show about the war in New York at that time. But the writers were kind of cheating here. The Culper ring itself really didn't get started until 1778, about 2 years after the British landed. We don't have an exact date for when the Culper ring finally disbanded, but we do know that in 1781, Abraham Woodhull got a little unnerved by some of the problems he was having, and the Continental Army stopped its regular payments to the ring. However, there is evidence that the Culper ring continued to give some information, not on a regular basis, but on an occasional basis, until the British finally abandoned New York in 1783. But as I said, in 1781, the band became less reliable, and part of the reason for that is the British pretty much gave up after the Battle of Yorktown. They didn't leave, but they received orders from London to engage in no offensive actions, and they pretty much just sat in New York City for the next 2 years and not much happened. Yeah, we actually do know a fair amount about him. There was obviously a real man named Samuel Culper. The name was Abraham Woodhull, and George Washington personally gave him the code name. And the real Woodhull shared many similarities with the character portrayed on Turn. He lived with his father, Judge Richard Woodhull, in Setauket. He was a cabbage farmer who spied on the British for many years, passing along his information to Major Benjamin Talmadge. There's also many places where the story on Turn departs from what we know about the real Woodhull. For example, Woodhull's mother was not dead, as she was on the show. He lived with both of his parents, and his mother actually outlived his father. His father was not shot during the war, but in fact died from natural causes in 1781. Also, the father, Richard Woodhull, was not a hardcore Tory as portrayed in the show. There's no good evidence that he really strongly supported either side, but he did not seem to have any objection when his son Abraham joined the Patriot militia earlier in the war. Also, Abraham Woodhull wasn't married. The show makes a big thing about him being married and cheating on his wife.
Married to his brother's wife, I believe, right? And his brother passed away, and so he married her as kind of a honorable thing.
Yeah, that was all made up. He did marry a woman named Mary Smith, but he didn't get married until 1781. So pretty much about the time the ring was going away is when he got married. And the couple did have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. The boy was named something differently than he was in the show, too. So that's all. His family life was very different. Woodhull also didn't have an affair with Anna Strong as he did in the show. Anna Strong did exist. She was part of the Culper ring. Her husband was a tavern keeper who was taken prisoner earlier in the war and held on one of the prison ships in New York. All that was portrayed somewhat in the show. But she was about 10 years older than Abraham in real life. She did pose as his wife a couple of times when he traveled into the city. It made his trips look less suspicious if he and his wife were traveling together as a family into the city. So he used her in that way. And she did play a role in the espionage team, hanging up a black petticoat on her clothesline when it was time for Caleb Brewster to come in and pick up information from Woodhull. She did a pretty good job with that, at least in the generalities. Major Talmadge is the man who put the Culper ring together for the Continental Army. As I said, there were other rings they had before this, and they were not particularly successful. One of the reasons was that spies obviously had a very difficult time traveling between enemy lines. Talmadge is the one who introduced this different system. Talmadge was from Setauket, and he used his childhood friends who were already living behind the lines to gather the information, and so that those people who were actually gathering information, like Woodhull, did not gather attention that they didn't want. They did not deliver the information anywhere. They simply collected the information, and then they could use another person to pick up the information and take it across the lines. I should note that Woodhull was really not as heroic a character as the show portrays. When Talmadge first contacted Woodhull about this, Woodhull was in a Connecticut prison. The Patriots had imprisoned him for trying to sell cabbages to the British in New York, and of course, trading with the enemy was a crime. Talmadge got him pardoned so that he could go home and spy for the Continentals. And then Caleb Brewster, as in the show, was another childhood friend of both men and had been working as a smuggler in the no man's land of Long Island, between Connecticut and Long Island. That area was really full of pirates and outlaws through most of the war. It took a really tough, nervy guy to navigate that area. Unlike Woodhull, Brewster had actually joined up with the Patriot Army early on and was actually fighting with the Patriots before Talmadge called him into spy duty.
I wanted to stop that right there because this is a painting that was done in, I believe, 38. And it is actually titled Woodhull and Caleb Brewster. So in that artist's mind, this is what it looked like when they were smuggling back and forth. So you had said that you really like this character, Lynn. Tell me a little bit about you've gotten up to where you've at least gotten in turn. What do you think about this character and what stands out about him to you? And the way he's portrayed in turn. Because it's pretty spot on. That is one character that they really get right is Caleb Brewster. It's funny how much they stuck to him. They really did. Go ahead.
I'm glad to see him throughout the series for, so far. The way that I just love his character in the sense that he doesn't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? He does his work, but he's not somebody that can be pushed around easily.
Right.
He's got those boundaries. He's also he's funny. He has a good sense
Patriot.
of humor.
Love
he's
his
a patriot too.
Oh
Absolutely.
My gosh. His
But
facial expressions, the actor that's
yes,
playing him, you'll see him, ahead here a little bit in this video. The actor who played him had him down. I mean, I don't know him, but everything I've read about him, everything that, he wasn't a big on writing. He wound up living alone, or at least not in a sad way. He was just he was his own dude.
yes, he
He had
was.
a great house. It's still, I believe it's still standing. If I can find it for you, I'll take you there. But I've got a couple surprises for you coming. But and I know it's so neat. I think it's so neat to be able to do this, because I don't know where everybody is, and people are watching it later, or you're watching it with the kids or whatever. It's so neat to have this, to go to the local news channels or whatever and take a quick tour of one of the houses that they left behind, or somebody's restoring, Major Talmadge's home, or Woodhall's. I watched a film today where the real Abraham Woodhull, I just keep wanting to call him Hall all the time, so that's why I'm stuttering. His house burnt down, I think, in maybe the early 20s, something. I mean, it lasted quite a long time. So the Daughters of the American Revolution collected the bricks with their own well manicured hands, God bless them, collected the bricks and went out there and had a monument built where he's buried.
Oh, wow,
Or,
that's amazing.
yeah, you could read the big old plaque, because I'll tell you, God bless them. If the Daughters of the American Revolution are doing a plaque, you can best believe their name is going to be on there pretty big. It always is. It always
when,
is.
when you had asked me before, what I meant, he would die for his country, that is for sure.
Oh.
And that's where he didn't. It wasn't that he didn't give a shit about the America, but he wasn't impressed by generals and
Nope.
and people that were army men or whatever, and he didn't play along with them. He did what he knew he needed to do. So that's the sense that I mean, that he didn't give a shit. He loved America. He loved the people, and like I said, was willing to die as a patriot for the freedom and all that we have.
And it shows in everything, everything he did. And that's the exciting part to me, because there's certain characters in turn that you can almost lay your hand on them and say, almost everything that the way they played this, the character, the way the actor portrayed it, the things that they picked up on, if you watch anything from, very valuable in doing this kind of research is looking at these interviews that they do, where they do these sit down pressers, and and stuff, and you can see the characteristics of them in their natural habitat, and how much they played just toward that character, and why they picked up on that. We talked about that when we were talking about Sons of Liberty. One of the best portrayals of that would have to be John Hancock, I would say, because he really, really studied, and all he really had, that actor said, was the way Hancock dressed, his handwriting, and things others said about him, and how he carried himself, and how to express the cadence of how he spoke. We don't have recordings, of how they spoke. We only have like how they wrote, and we have to imagine their voice. It's almost like that thing, Lynn, where you went from the silent movies and these are wonderful actors, and then all of a sudden went to talkies, and so many fell to the wayside because their voice, they might have had a real high-pitched voice. Or you imagine Rudolph Valentino coming out with a hey lady, how you doing, come over here, you imagine, just ruined the whole movie. Don't talk, keep your mouth shut.
Exactly.
But it's almost like that, how things would change if we actually got to hear them. But when these actors really get that into a part, like your Tom Hardys and stuff like that, who really play on this, there's a couple of those in turn, and I think Hewlett is one of them. Fabulous portrayal. When you get into, I don't know how much you've seen him, and I don't want to spoil anything for you or anybody that's watching this summer with us. But and if you are binge watching this, hurry up and finish. We got one more episode and then we're done with our summer thing, because spooky season is here and nothing gets in the way of spooky season.
That's
So
right.
I'm already starting to drop fall mystery grab bags and everything else. So expect anything on this channel from now till, I think I pass out around November 1st. Because we go, Steve Stockton and I we go hard at Halloween, don't we, Lynn? And
Yes,
you're
you
a part
do.
of it now too for many years. So we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah,
So
he may have to go a little bit softer this year. When is his
Disney's
baby
got
due?
the baby this week. Little man's
Oh,
coming this week. Little man's
oh
coming
my
this week.
goodness.
That's why I got the ginger babies.
Oh, how cute
This
is
is for
that?
little. This is
Yeah,
for little man. So I'm eating ginger babies for Nick Stockton. So we love you, baby, and send lots of happy thoughts and energy your way.
absolutely.
Everybody, do it right now. Think of the Stocktons and send it, because here in the near future it could be hours, it could be minutes. Steve Stockton's going to be a daddy, and he's not going to get any sleep for the next 2 weeks.
That's right.
So
So he may not be doing
you're gonna,
the Halloween thing. You might get
you're
stuck
gonna,
with me.
yeah, you're gonna have to come over here and watch old ghost videos with me and Lynn, and we're just gonna eat and have snacks and have a good old time. We'll
and
make
he's going to need to pop in with that baby too, because
yeah.
we're all going to want to see him.
He's got an
So,
outfit for every day between now and Halloween.
oh,
Rest
no
assured.
doubt,
Rest
no
assured.
doubt.
I'm eating his little hand. I'm eating a little hand right now. I'm eating this for you, Stockton.
Oh,
So I'm ready for fall, man. I'm telling you, it felt like fall a week, 2, 3 weeks ago. All right, let's finish with Brewster. But anyway, this guy does a great job. But I wanted to name off the characters in here. It's easier to name off the ones that they just absolutely played to a T. And I think that's Hewlett. But Hewlett wasn't there during this time. They pulled him over from like another city. He existed, but he wasn't in, Setauket. He wasn't a part of this group. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad of that, because here's the thing. Toward the spoiler alert, cover your ears. Now just give me 30 seconds. Toward the end, he gets done wrong, and my heart almost broke for him
oh,
because he didn't deserve it. I liked the little character. He was very good. He was strict. He was, law and all. He didn't deserve what's coming. Okay, you can take your. Well, if they got their hands over their ears, how did they hear me tell them to take it off? They could just sit there the rest of the show with their hands over their ears. How are they going to hear me?
uh-oh.
So anyway, I like the character. So there's that. Simcoe. Well, let's go back to the ones that are played right. Brewster is played, I think, as much to a T as they possibly could. That being said, I think they got Woodhull very well done. I think Bell did a great job. Jamie Bell, I think it's Jamie, and but they took the character, the character he played was, I think, very close to the Bell, but they took the story of him and they added to it. But the character himself playing him, I think he got the nervousness and the danger, and it showed, and the worry for his family, even though in turn, you think he's worried about his wife and child, where really he was worried about his sister and getting his parents killed. He was just a cabbage farmer, and this was a real deal. So again, like I said before, just people being armchair quarterback and throwing out, well, I think you should have done this and this. Put yourself in his, muddy boots. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But Brewster, you can put. I dare you to put your feet in Brewster's, because he was a hellcat. Let's just put it that way. And God bless him for it.
So yeah, the spy ring worked pretty much as the show portrayed it. Anna Strong would signal Caleb Brewster for a pickup. Woodhull would have gathered the information from New York City, and then Caleb Brewster would carry it back to Talmadge, and then Talmadge would take the information, review it, and give it on or pass it along to General Washington.
Nightmare. Good night, baby.
Yeah, well, I think a big part of it was that they were childhood friends, and right during the war, you didn't know who you could trust, because a lot of people kept their opinions to themselves. They didn't want one side or the other harassing them for expressing a contrary view. So a lot of people just shut up, kept their head down, and farmed their cabbages. The fact that Talmadge knew all these people meant that he knew them as people, knew what they thought, what they believed, and knew that they could trust each other, that they weren't going to turn on each other. So that all worked well. The ring did expand beyond the Setauket friends in the show, and this is true in real life as well. Woodhull enlisted Robert Townsend, who was a Quaker that ran a tavern in New York City. In 1779, he began collecting information for Woodhull, and he got the code name Culper Jr. There was also another guy named Austin Rowe who also lived in Setauket and was part of this childhood friend band, who became a courier between Townsend and Woodhull. Originally, Woodhull had traveled to New York City himself, but he kept getting harassed by soldiers and didn't want to risk it. So Austin Rowe was the one who made these journeys between New York City and Setauket. Rowe never shows up in the series. I guess the writers probably wanted to make Woodhull look a little braver by making the trips himself.
Yeah, adds a little more tension to it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and there were others in the ring, too. I mean, Woodhull had a sister that lived in New York City and ran a boarding house. The show also has a slave named Abigail and her son in the spy ring. There actually was a slave who, I'm not sure that he was involved in the Culper ring, but I guess he was tangentially. A male adult slave whose name was Cato, I believe. But he worked for a patriot who was also involved in the ring. There weren't any slaves, as far as I know of, who actually worked in British households and turned over information like they did in the show. Again, that was a little bit of creative license, I think. Well, yeah, spy rings were very critical, maybe even more so than today, because today at least we have some electronic surveillance and satellites and things like that, which can give us a lot of information. If Washington couldn't see something from his telescope, 50 miles away, he wasn't going to know about it unless someone told him. So yeah, the Culper ring was able to gather information about troop numbers, how many masses of troops and regiments were being amassed in New York. They would sometimes pick up scuttlebutt about movements, where officers were talking about in taverns where they might be going, what they might be doing next. Probably one of the most useful things that the Culper ring did uncover was when the French army was planning to land at Newport, Rhode Island, and the British were going to ambush them there. The Culper ring got this information to Washington, and Washington used that intelligence to fake an offensive against New York City. This forced the British to call off the attack on Newport so that they could keep up their defenses in New York and prevent this attack. So that sort of information was also very helpful. The ring also received some information about the relief fleet that was going to Yorktown. Washington was able to get the French fleet to fight off that British fleet, leaving Cornwallis stranded at Yorktown. Now, he probably would have gotten that intelligence from some other sources as well, but that's one of the things the ring passed along. Oh, also the Benedict Arnold stuff. They did pass some information that a major or important officer was going to be possibly turned. They never identified Benedict Arnold until after he fled, unfortunately. But they were somewhat aware of what was going on before Arnold skipped out and turned sides. Both sides used intelligence officers both for collecting information and for spreading disinformation. That was always very helpful if they could either know what the enemy was going to do or convince the enemy they were going to do something that they really weren't. Was always a good thing. So, yeah, there were quite a few attempts in quite a few places to do things like that. Well, right, it's always kind of a guessing game, and having a trusted source who's been correct in the past is always good, but right, you never know for certain. I mean, one of the things that really convinced Washington of the necessity of the Culper ring is, you may remember earlier in the war, in I guess it was late 76, when the British were in New York. I guess this was 77, after the Washington's crossing, and he had pushed the British pretty much out of most of New Jersey, and they were back in New York City. In 77, they were kind of waiting to see what the British General Howe was going to do next. And Howe sent several feints into North Jersey. He was hoping to pull Washington out of the mountains and destroy his army. And he did this by sending disinformation to Washington's army, saying that he was going to march across New Jersey to Philadelphia. In fact, when Washington didn't take the bait, he didn't do that. He got on ships and they sailed down to the Chesapeake and marched to Philadelphia from the south. So that's kind of one of those examples where, if Washington had better information, he could have reacted better to what the British were doing. I mean, Talmadge wasn't really a decision maker. He was there to provide intelligence. Washington was the one who, he obviously for very good reason, kept his spy networks pretty close to his vest. He didn't want to be, he had to be very careful on who he shared a lot of this information with, even among his other officers. So Talmadge worked pretty directly and closely with Washington on providing him with this intelligence. Washington spent most of the Revolution, at least after the British abandoned Philadelphia, in North Jersey, pretty much within 50 miles of the city, either in North Jersey or in southern upstate New York. So he was always within a day's ride of any information that was coming out of Setauket. Yeah, I mean, Washington obviously famously spent one winter in Valley Forge. That was really before the ring got going. Once the ring got going, he was more or less in the area of New York for the rest of the war. At the time of his defection, he was one of the most senior major generals in the Army. I mean, there were dozens of generals. He was like in the top 2 or 3 guys. There may be a couple of major generals in Washington that were above him. And even among those, he was really considered probably the best combat general in the Army. It's kind of like if General Patton had defected to the Nazis near the end of World War II.
Oh, wow. That's a great analogy there. That's great.
It just would have been that crazy, yeah.
I had to stop there and bring that up. That is like the best analogy, and I had to make sure you guys got to hear it, because you have to understand the impact this had. Now, we have talked about Benedict Arnold, throughout. He like Washington, because of Saratoga and so many other things, is like a thread, in this tapestry of the Revolutionary War era, going way back, just like Samuel Adams, again, these characters that are interwoven from beginning to end. It's absolutely amazing. John Adams, another, we could go on naming. It is very much as if Patton said, I'm going to go join, Hitler. It had to have thrown Washington sideways. From what I understand, when he heard it, he hung his head and he said, who can we trust now? And that it just gutted him. And he immediately sent Hamilton out to kill him. He broke all of his rules. That was it. He was so angry. And again, we speak on how he struggled. I believe very much, that it's possible. I don't know how Lynn, I don't know if you even thought about this, but I think Washington was a light worker. He had a struggle. I don't know how he felt on reincarnation. I haven't been able to find anything in writing. I know he had the spiritual, different experiences he had, but the way he struggled through and tried to control his anger to better himself and the people around him. He knew he was a leader. He didn't quite know how he got there. I think that happened early in life. But what do you think about that thought?
No, I totally agree with that. And I think that's why he was given the privilege of being approached by, was it Lady Liberty or whatever the vision that he had, that also, in addition to having spies bringing him back information, he was gifted with being told some other maneuvers that, also worked out for him, that were just having that vision.
Almost like a divine hand was involved,
exactly.
And again, you can look at that all different ways, it can really happen in anything that works out. We can look at it and say, but there are things that happen that are just like, whoa, Washington had a lot of those, but this is one that I think is very hard for a light worker, is that betrayal of a trust.
Absolutely.
And having that rug pulled out from under you as a light worker, it's almost hard to where you're like, okay, another lesson, again, you have to understand, nobody, learned anything from something being easy. It's always those hard lefts that, unexpected, or those, unexpected walls we run into, or, those, and especially the things that hurt. And I also think that this, it toughened up Washington. Not that he wasn't already, but it kind of galvanized him a little bit. This whole, I mean, you have to understand what Benedict Arnold was going to do. He's going to turn over West Point, and how this went down. Talk about your divine intervention. I mean, this man here by far, is more of an expert than I should ever hope to be, in anything. But the way I see it is, it's a tsunami of treason and mistrust and devastation. And this is one of his best generals. This dude's a warrior, proven over and over and over, and he's a bit of a whiner. But he rightfully so in a lot of ways. I mean, he wasn't getting paid. He's got kids he's got to pay. Oh, he's a widower. And then along comes this chick here, blindsided, absolutely blindsided, didn't have a chance in a snowball's chance in hell. Here she is, Peggy Shippen. What did you think about this? Have you gotten this far in the story? Have you hit this yet?
I've gotten to the part where they were at the dance and he was kind of eyeballing her from the side.
Yeah.
She was dancing with Washington. And I don't know. So yeah. So I'm just getting up to that point.
Oh God, talk about your Peyton Place and your as the stomach turns, girl. This is, you really have to dig. Hey, Kat, good to see you, sweetheart. And thanks, Linda, for dropping in. I'm just loving your quotes. Keep throwing them down because I'm trying to get to them. Sometimes I go back and I'll catch them again. And sometimes after the show, I'll still miss some. But also, thanks everybody in the chat putting stuff in. I'm going to try to catch it. Go ahead, Lynn.
And also, don't forget, in addition to the thumbs up and the subscribing and the sharing, please don't forget to also click on the notification bell. It's another one of those rhythmic things that you've got to, have added.
It does. It really kind of does. It's I would say, yeah. It certainly did for me. I mean, and I hope globally, because here's the thing about patriotism. Patriotism is a person loving their country, loving their, what they're surrounded in. And some people shift and go to other countries and, they find out that that's where they belong. But loving where you are and having the freedom to choose that, even, I know many people that have left here and gone to places and I think, wow, man, that's a heck of a jump, but they're happy, and I think it's just loving where you are and being, that's a patriot. You bet it is, and definitely, I hope that it reached out and touched a lot of young people and gave them a grounding and a foundation and said, wow, it's different to be an American, because this is a melting pot of a lot of people that came together and assimilated together because they had the same values in what, they were shooting for. And then you had the groups that shifted off, like all of Pennsylvania was founded on a whole group of people going with Penn. He was given that, and that was all, religious, the Quakers. I can't remember. It was something similar to Quakers, wasn't it, Lynn? Off the top of my head. Don't quote me.
I need to step away for 1 second. My dog needs to go out. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I'm going to finish this up too. But yeah, I would say definitely. God, I hope so. I hope it promotes patriotism within everybody's heart. I mean, gosh, if you don't love where you are, why are you there? Right? It's really that simple. All right. And these guys, the whole point of them is they fought to the last full measure of devotion, and all their friends all around them. So, damn Skippy, I take it serious, absolutely. And it means something to take that oath and then give your all. And, to read the journals of these soldiers and, whether it's an eyewitness account of a bravery that they witnessed or, something that they went through, these young boys who left home and the plow in the field and, milking cows and whatever, and wound up being absolute heroes and came back men 8 years later. A lot of them went all the way through, and you wonder how in the world. And would I ever have that stamina? Would I ever have the intestinal fortitude within myself to give that much of me for the place I lived and the country I believed in? Yeah, makes you think. Yep. So, is the lady in this photo a spy? This is a great question, Linda. Here we go. Yes. Turns out she's #1 paid spy during the whole revolution by the British, and we kind of think maybe France too, but absolutely great question. But yes, and we found that out last episode. It's in #8. There toward the end, we gave it away that yeah, it's been proven. We found out in the 30s, and it's quite the thing. And she passed. She was married here to Benedict Arnold. This is, of course, the characters in turn that are playing Peggy Shipman and Benedict Arnold. And again, this what you're looking at here is kind of on the mark, except I think Benedict was a little bit older. I mean, I think he was very gray, and he was not one to wear wigs. He, you know, he was a little bit more old manish looking in the face, a big nose, and he was not what you'd say an attractive. You'll see some pictures of the actual drawings, illustrations of course they didn't have cameras then, for sure. We're 1700s here, but Peggy was quite the looker, and she had a thing going on with Andre. She's 16 years old. She's living it. She was what a character. Got to hand it to the girl. She's living at home. Her mom and dad in Pennsylvania. They're kind of playing both sides. They're elites and they've got money. So they're, why pick a side? You've got, throw a party, the British come, and you throw, down the line, there's more, the other side, the colonials and stuff. So you play that. And she grew up in that. She grew up and was coming of age at 15, 16 when British officers are coming over to mom and dad's and having social dances and stuff. So she meets Andre. Andre is the head spy for Britain, right, Froze? And he's quite the thing. And he knows what he's doing, and he won her heart, I think, for eternal. And yes, she turned out to be the highest paid spy. Some people say she had no influence on Benedict Arnold turning. I beg to differ. I think we can prove it. I think history proves it, and I think it's an amazing story.
Yeah, so Arnold made a deal with General Clinton via Major Andre, and he really wasn't passing a lot of information to the British before then. It was really just them trying to make the arrangements for him to leave that were involved in most of these discussions. The deal was that the British would make him a brigadier general in the regular army and give him a pile of money. In exchange, Arnold would not only switch sides, but would surrender West Point to the British. West Point at this time was a key defense to the Hudson Valley. There was a major fort there, a major American garrison, more than 3,000 officers and men who Arnold was going to just turn over to the British and let them become British prisoners. Fortunately, when Andre came to meet Arnold near West Point, the Americans chased off the ship that brought him in. Then he tried to sneak back to British lines wearing a civilian coat and with maps and documents that Arnold had given him, outlining the defenses at West Point. So they caught him and they hanged him as a spy. Washington actually wanted to trade Andre for Arnold so that he could get back and hang Arnold, but General Clinton would not do the trade, so Washington had to satisfy himself with hanging Major Andre. His wife Peggy, she was from a Tory family and probably was telling him every single day, oh, they don't appreciate you. You could do so much better if you were with the British and stuff like that. I'm sure that helped as well. And I think what really did it, though, was a few years earlier when Arnold was military commander of Philadelphia. He had made some personal purchases and things like that, and he was using government ships to move them around, which was probably unethical, mixing personal and work-related stuff. But it was not unheard of. Other leaders did similar things. Arnold got called out on it. He got court-martialed. I think the reason they went after him was not so much for what he was doing, but because he had married into this Tory family, and they thought that was not appropriate, and so they wanted to get him, and this is what they got him on. Arnold hoped that Washington would stick up with him in all this, but the court-martial ordered Washington to write Arnold a letter of reprimand, and Washington wrote him a letter of reprimand. This played into Arnold's feeling that no one in the Continental Army appreciated him or liked him, and so, his wife was telling him, oh, you could just go over to the other side. You were winning this for the Americans. You'll win it for the British, and you're such a wonderful general and all this stuff. So I think that's what got him to go over. In the end, he did get a little over 6,000 pounds sterling.
That's
which is
West Point.
a decent amount of money for the time. And he also had an annual pension from his generalship. The reason he didn't get the full amount of money was that the deal he had made was to turn over West Point. And of course, when everything got uncovered and he had to flee, it meant that the British only got him. They didn't get West Point. Yeah, of course, Colonel Tavington in The Patriot was based loosely on Colonel Bannister Tarleton, who was pretty nasty in real life. He was known for killing prisoners, people that were surrendering on the battlefield, things like that. So he was pretty notorious for that sort of thing. There's a term called Tarleton's quarter meaning surrender. Tarleton's quarter meant giving no quarter. It meant killing everybody, no matter what they did, no matter how they surrendered or whatever. So he was a pretty brutal guy. Simcoe, and there really was a man named John Graves Simcoe, who started out as a regular officer and then transitioned to command of the Queen's Rangers, just like
Lynn doesn't like him.
The Queen's Rangers was originally known as Rogers Rangers. Colonel Rogers was also a person that shows up in the show. He was a big leader in the French and Indian War and resurrected as Rangers for the American Revolution. He's really scary.
He is, I swear.
And eventually lost his command.
He's loony.
The Queen's Rangers was largely a group of Tory militia that were taken from New York.
Yes.
And I think I see this in a lot of cases. The average British soldier and the average American soldier didn't necessarily hate each other. They had to fight each other because they were in a war. There was not that visceral level of hate that you have when your friend and neighbor goes and joins the other side to fight against you. So when American militia or American patriots fought against Tory militia who were fellow Americans and their friends and neighbors, the fighting did tend to be a little more vicious and tend to be a little more brutal. Now, Simcoe, of course, was made out to be a really pretty horrible monster, and I get that. They want to, you make the bad guys bad and you make the good guys good, and you emphasize it through a lot of things.
He was fantastic.
The real Simcoe, I don't think, was anywhere near the monster that was portrayed on the show. Like many British officers, he did what he had to do to get intelligence from time to time. There was an occasion where he did rough up Judge Woodhull and his house when he was trying to find Abraham, but he really wasn't, a sociopath like he was on the show. He was a respected officer. He got married near the end of the war. He lived in Britain, served in Parliament. After the war, he later served as Lieutenant Governor of Lower Canada, where he abolished slavery long before it was abolished in the rest of the empire. So he was a really highly respected guy and a good officer. He actually eventually became a major general and was appointed to be Commander-in-Chief of India, although he died before being able to take that post.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
So there you go. That gives you a little bit. Now listen, these guys were absolutely fantastic. And you can go and catch him on the it's as it's stated, the American Revolution podcast, and he's absolutely fantastic. That's just a couple of little pieces, because why not go to the expert, because he's fantastic with it. So that gives you a little idea of how they stretched it, how they got it. I don't want to say got it right, because I think they've got the whole thing right. If you're looking at it that way, what are you watching it for? Are you watching it to get, is this the only history you're getting? Are you adding this to the history you already know? Do you know some facts and you see what I mean? Are you just watching it purely for the drama of it? What do you think, Lynn? I think they did a good job.
I think they
got
did an amazing job, and they had to have some of the drama thrown in there. You're drawn into this show. You don't want to stop watching. You're anxious to see what's going to happen next. So they had to put a little bit of that. If they were to have kept it exactly the way that it would just be like a day-to-day kind of mundane kind of thing. So they did have to put some zinger. And the bottom line being that people at least are watching it and learning about the history of some truthful things too, which I think is the main point that they were, trying to do with that.
Yeah, there was a lot of people fighting, Linda. I mean, honestly, there was all kinds. It was Rogers Rangers, which was one of the best, guerrilla warfare groups. There was, the Green Mountain Boys. There was so many groups of people. Listen, the thing is, you want to get in one of those groups that are just out there. They know what they're doing. That they're the guys in the trees that are, aiming down on you. You want people that know what they're doing, that are trained by the Native Americans out there that have been fighting in the French and Indian War, that survived that, and they're the seasoned ones. And I think this guy here, this fellow we're looking at, was one of them, because he was involved in all this. Look, he was involved first, and that's why he was working a little bit with smuggling back and forth. And of course, he knew Talmadge. They all grew up together. And that is one of the great truths of Turn. That is true. So, let's end tonight on, going over just a quick facts of what was true. These people existed. They existed. They existed. And, not long ago, Lynn, you know what I mean? It's really not that long ago, 248 years. I mean, it sounds like you can still go touch houses that they lived in. You can go and, see where they're buried. You can go to, it's just, it blows your mind. And I think going into that again is such a step in the paranormal, the supernatural, that people just resist for some reason. And I think that's one of the things that the summer event's been a part of, is to retouch into history. What could be more important than going over, how did my ancestors get through their revolutionary awakening? Because make no mistake about it, folks, that's what they were calling it. That's what they were calling it. And they don't want you to know that. They were calling it the Great Awakening. They were calling it the quickening at that time. Everybody felt it. That's why in the end, everybody came together. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And, we talk about, if history was being written right now, what would it say about you? Do you see yourself in any one of these characters? Would you struggle? Do you struggle with your anger like Washington? Are you all in like Caleb Brewster? He's not just smuggling, again, easy to speak it, easy for you to say, right? And I'm sitting here just struggling and stuttering through it. He's getting yes, he's a whaler, and yes, he's got experience, but he's in the middle of the night. He is crossing, within pirates, British ships. He's going in and out the shadows. I mean, he's taking his life in his hands every minute, and I think that's why he liked it, but
I think so too.
Patriot, I'm glad he was on our side, and I wish we had more, and we did, and that should be spoken. So in August 1778, George Washington accepted an offer from Army Lieutenant Caleb Brewster of Norwalk, Connecticut, to provide intelligent reports on British troop movements. Here is a plaque for Caleb Brewster. You can go, you can touch it, you can look at it. It actually happened. And yeah, a revolutionary hero. And I think it's cool that this show kind of brought that forward to a lot of people. They had never heard of the Culper spy ring, even though in the 30s is when we started uncovering about Peggy Shipman and Townsend, that he was Culper Jr. and all this other stuff. A couple of books come out, just like anything else in history, and they have their own flavor to it. And some of it's stretched this way, some of it that way, but again, like I said, I think it's very important for the paranormal to be able to dig into this, because almost every place that's there now, so many stories of hauntings and, all these towns where these things happen with civilians as well, you know. So
Yes.
you've got Raynham Hall still exists where Townsend was, and very haunted by a young girl, I think, that was there. There was another country house or something next to it or close to it, or had something to do with the Townsends. And she was left at 16 to watch this house. Her parents leave because they've got property in New Jersey. This happened during the war, around like 1778. And they leave her in charge. And the British come, and she can't stop them. And they want the house because it's big and they can put a lot of people there. Yeah. And they take over. They're there for a while. She's always going to the window looking for her parents to return home. They never do because they're dead and she doesn't know it.
Oh, wow.
She's killed by British up the road, next county, whatever. She doesn't get any word. And the British finally leave, right? And the townspeople are mad at her because she housed the British and they think that she's a traitor. So what do? They go in, they raid her house, and they hang her in her own living room. And now her ghost is seen to this day staring out that window. You know what I mean? There's so many stories like this. So if you know a little bit about the Revolutionary War and a little bit tap into what the civilians went through and what these people went through, I think it makes you a better investigator. Lynn, what do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, being up in that direction recently, it was amazing, how even walking through a trail, you can hear footsteps. And you're the only person there. You can hear footsteps of the actual crunching of the leaves or the walking through the area. So the whole area definitely has a lot of activity. From what I understand, they recently passed, was it you that said that they passed the law that you're not allowed to discuss anything haunted while you're on the battlefield?
In Gettysburg, yeah.
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 Which is crazy because
$10,000 fine, Lynn.
Wow.
This is we are not exaggerating, my friends. This is a $10,000 fine. I've got it from good source, a trusted source. That we're amazed because they were tightening up, but and it's only on the battlefield. It's what the Fed zone. You know what I mean? The national forest, the battlefield.
Yeah, they were doing, and some of the people that I was with were doing an investigation on the battlefield during the daytime before this law went into place.
Oh, wow.
Like days before it went into place. And they were recording and they could hear the soldier walking up. And they asked him what his name was, and there was a pause. And then he gave his name. And then they said, "What was the last thing that you heard before you died?" And very, very clearly, you can hear the sound of a cannon going off.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you up here. I still can't figure this stuff out. I'm trying to get you. When you talk, it's so easy for, to focus like that, but I keep getting me and not you.
That's okay.
I need to quit before I mess up. All right. So let me take this down because I think I messed up.
There is so much activity there. In the place that we stayed in an Airbnb, and it was also, I mean, there was this big barn outside, and there was a young woman that had been raped and murdered by a soldier and left for dead there that was on the property. We even had, because there was an interstate next to it, not only did we have people and spirits that were of that time era, but we had a recent one that had passed away on the interstate, like in the 1980s, because that's how she looked. That was also there.
Oh,
so
man.
You had the older ones and the younger ones, and we had those bells that they leave on the desk, like in a hotel or something, that you ding ding ding.
Oh yeah.
We had we had those. We had cat balls. We had flashlights, and cat balls. They touch them and they light up.
Yeah. They're great. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. It just sounds funny.
And the flashlight too. They tap it. And you know that it's not you bumping it, because then you say, "Okay, will you please turn it off so we can ask you another question?" And they immediately shut it off. So, and they can ding, ding, ding. that bell also. So and when there was the yard was full of soldiers and farmers and people with like the pilgrims with the bonnets on and all kinds of things like that in that yard. It was amazing.
You know, when you get in a place that's that electrifying, and again, it's like it's these places that people have restored. The natural wood, I think all that stuff still remembers. You telling me that
Course.
a staircase, that I'm sorry, I'm messing with my lights, man. Um, a staircase that multiple people have gone down for centuries, centuries. Their hands on the rail, they're coming down for proms and weddings and dates and God knows what else, meeting whatever's coming in the door, all that emotion on those in that wood. You can't
Absolutely.
tell me, and you can't tell me that not understanding the history of what happened in that property doesn't make you a better paranormal investigator. You don't go, it doesn't make you, if you can fight the feeling of going in with having that
Expectation.
yeah, thank you expectation of and making it pollute your your
Mhm.
findings and what you collect, because some people don't want to know anything, and
Now,
that's fine. That's a different thing to me, though. Somebody
well,
with
see,
abilities going in a different way.
that's true. For me, I don't usually do investigations, but I was there with two couples that did investigations, so I was kind of involved in that because I see them all the time anyway. So, but the thing was, is there was a older lady in the house, and you could hear her laugh. It wasn't creepy though, but apparently she had fallen down the stairs, and then there was this area where a man was shot at the top of the stairs. So that whole stairwell was full of lots
Just
of imprints and that weird kind of energy, like you were talking about, that you
just
would pick up on.
saturated,
I don't know why I'm
saturated,
sounding hoarse. Yeah, it is saturated because
saturated.
everything's energy.
And
So
you can't, and you can't deny it if you have any kind of abilities whatsoever. And I think everybody has them, you
mhm.
know. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
recently I, bumped into, somebody I know that's going through, opening up to that and getting the signals, but like
Hmm.
maybe reading them differently. It's like I know it's
Yes,
about the water faucet, but I read it wrong. I thought the water faucet was going to do this, but it was something else. Had to do with the
exactly.
water faucet, but you just read it wrong. And I think that's the number one thing with mediums readings on both sides, because sometimes a medium will see a yellow rose and think it means something because that's what it always means to them. But in another case, what the spirit's trying to tell the person sitting, it means something totally different. And the person will, whatever it be, it doesn't have to be a rose, could be anything. It's like, do you know a Mike? And they'll go, I don't know Mike. There's no Mike. You're reading wrong. And they get home and they find out something to do with a Mike that they
Yes,
had no idea.
absolutely right.
It
Yeah,
happens
that's
all the time,
true.
or they overlook it because they read it wrong. They received the information wrong. If you just go in
Hmm.
open, for sure. You go in open, you go, oh, because gosh knows how many times one thing can mean so many different things. And it all has to do with your consciousness at the time. It changes as your consciousness you go, and it expands. It doesn't really shift like you were wrong and it's something different. It's more.
Yes,
You see what I'm saying, Lynn? It's more.
hmm,
It's more. It's that and
it
more.
is.
That and the
It
side.
is.
So let's finish up with this. This is 3 minutes. I thought it'd be fun to take you to Raynham Hall. This is where Robert Townsend lived, and he was Culper Jr. And he is the young man that owned the merchant. He was a merchant. He had like a bar. He had like a modern day coffee house, a dark pubby kind of place. But it was also, I think he had a couple of rooms, especially in Turn. Have you met Townsend in Turn yet?
Yes.
Where, okay.
Yeah.
So he was the reluctant spy. It's like, I really don't want to do it. But you overhear all this
Hmm.
stuff. And it's so easy for you. You're in New York. We don't have to get you in and out, So it's about getting the information out. And this is where writing on the hard boiled eggs comes in. They have to
Yes.
they
Wasn't that
peel the
cool?
eggs. Yes. They peel the eggs and the message is on the egg, on the hard boiled egg.
With the
This is
invisible
where,
ink.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the sympathetic stain. Lots of letter writing, in between the lines. That's where that comes from. And they were very much into the the stencil. You had to have the like the cut. You'll have the cardboard cut out, and it has a couple little blocks cut out, and you have to use it, and that's where your message is hidden. Very simplistic, almost prehistoric, antique ideas, but they worked, and that's all they had. And the thing that blew me away was to go to the lengths of a woman. You'd have a note, very tiny writing. They would take it and they would put, if you see how their vests and jackets were, you see a lot of cloth buttons going on. Not talking really about the soldier uniforms. Most of those were metal, but the cloth buttons. So they'd hide the note under the cloth, sew it on the button, put the
Or
button
the hem.
back on the jacket,
Yeah.
and the child would go up. The child would wear the jacket, and he would go with the person, and the spy or the person on the other end would just cut off the button. They'd know what button it would be, and that would be the note. And you'd wonder, why would you go through so much stuff? Well, Nathan Hale, Andre was caught by a note. Nathan Hale was caught by a note. It's incredible, but true. So this is why they went through so much, writing on eggs and, all that other stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was. And I think they showed that well in turn. I really do. I think the reluctance of Townsend to be a spy, that was very well played. I think he was another character that was very well portrayed, I think. And he comes out well in the end. I think he was well done, All right, so here we go. Let's go to where he lived. Oops, wait. I have to hit the button on this side. Doggone it. Choo-choo.
When looking at Raynham Hall Museum, you can see two distinctly different houses, which represent different generations of the Townsend family. First, look at the front of the building, which shows us the 1770s, when the family of Samuel Townsend played a pivotal role in the Revolutionary War. Now look at the rear of the house, which reflects the 1870s, when Samuel's grandson, Solomon Townsend II, transformed the house into a lavishly furnished Victorian villa. When the town took ownership of Raynham Hall in 1947 to make it into the house museum you see today, they removed the beautiful bay windows, porte cochere, tower, skylight, and other Victorian additions, and put back the original salt box front. For over 200 years, this home was continuously occupied by the Townsend family, and many of the objects and furnishings inside are original to the house. The house is believed to have been built in 1738, and in 1740, a Quaker merchant named Samuel Townsend and his wife Sarah moved here from Jericho. The house was built originally as a 2-by-2, meaning 2 rooms below and 2 rooms above. But as their family grew, they expanded the house with a 4-room addition, making it a classic salt box construction. Samuel Townsend, besides being a prosperous merchant, also served as town clerk, justice of the peace, and was elected to the New York Provincial Congress in 1776. He was a shipping merchant who owned 4 ships bringing goods such as tea, spices, fabrics, molasses, pottery, rum, and wine from many ports, including England, Portugal, Ireland, Spain, and the Caribbean. The years of most historical interest were between 1778 and 1780, when more than 400 soldiers and officers of the British Army occupied Oyster Bay, and their commander, Lieutenant Colonel John Graves Simcoe, set up his headquarters in Raynham Hall. During the Revolutionary War, Samuel Townsend's son Robert was a key member of the Culper spy ring, who supplied General George Washington with critical information needed to win the war for independence. Also, what is believed to be America's first Valentine was given here by Lieutenant Colonel John Graves Simcoe to Sally Townsend, Samuel's teenage daughter, on February 14, 1779. Raynham Hall had the town's first kitchen with running water. In 1851, Solomon II erected a 3-story water tower in the garden beside the house.
Gosh, now
Some
I gotta
also
pee.
believe that Raynham Hall is the most haunted house on Long Island, and tales persist of ghosts believed to haunt the house's many rooms. Make sure you take time to visit this amazing 22-room house museum, which can take you on a journey through time to 2 important eras in the history of Oyster Bay.
Well,
There you go. How about that?
yes.
Extremely haunted. So I think it's kind of neat. He was, like I said, the kind of the reluctant spy. They all really were. Anna Strong, we didn't spend a lot of time on her because there's a lot of controversy back and forth. I believe the story of her hanging the black petticoat to signal Caleb. There's a lot of people that are going back and forth. Says she didn't need to do that. They were close like that. Okay, there's more for it than against it. So I'm going to go for it because if not, it still represents all the women, the unsung women who pass notes back and forth, the ones who, slept with these, some of these sloppy pigs to get, secrets back and forth, to save a husband, to get somebody out of one of these horrific prison ships or some other bad situation, because this is the kind of strife that this kind of war brings. War is hell. There's no two ways about it. It's going to bring out the best and the worst in everybody. And there's going to be a lot of broken hearts, broken bones, and, broken people left along the way. And a lot of people are going to die. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But we can look back in history and learn from it and try not to repeat the same mistakes again. Because, if we don't learn from it, we're destined to repeat it. So there you go. So what do you think, Lynn? Close us out, sweetheart. What do you got going on?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I've got a new book coming out in October and another one coming out around Christmas time. So I'm working on those. Of course, my Gaia show is out. So please, feel free to watch that. I can be reached at www.lynnmonet.com. I'm currently enrolled in classes for the Mace Energy. It's a healing energy that helps remove stamps and post-traumatic stress from people with very, very few appointments needed. Sometimes it can be done in one. You don't have to dredge up everything. It just kind of goes in and takes them out. So I'm working on that as well. I just finished my death doula certification, and I've just been busy writing books.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
And I'm on a lot of shows too. So
yes. And Lynn is going to come back part of spooky season, and we're going to bring you our best ghost stories and all that other stuff and experiences, and bring forth her next book. And that which one is that one?
That's the name? It's Omnipresent 111 Beckett on Drive. It's the story about the ghost picture that I sent you, where the guy outlined where he's standing there covering his Johnson. It's a story about a naked ghost that went. There were a string of townhouses. There were 10 of them, and I ended up having to live in one of them, moving quickly post divorce. And when I went in, I didn't take the time to sense anything. I just went in. It looked clean. It was in a nice area. The price was right. I had my deposit and I signed right there on the dotted line, which turned out to be a mistake because the whole building was badly haunted. And there was this one spirit in particular that would go from townhouse to townhouse, crawling in bed with women, pulling down their underwear, and in some cases doing more than that during the night. And women would wake up and their underpants would be down around their ankles. And I personally myself, he would sit there and he would tap on my nightstand, and then all of a sudden I would ignore it, and all of a sudden I'd feel my covers start to get pulled off. And
that has got to be the creepiest thing, Lynn.
And I sit up and I'm like, you need to get the F-bomb out of my room.
Everybody's got that. Don't have your feet hanging over the bed. Don't, because I for years closed out my radio show with, keep your closet door shut, keep your feet under the covers, because there are things that go bump in the night, because your foot hanging, I dare you. Who can sleep with their foot hanging over the bed and not worry about it? Outside of the covers, who can do it? It's hard. But it's creepy. Yeah. So it's a creepy story. I wanted to say this before we go. Froze Moment said it. Yeah. The Valentine, Simcoe would you imagine? After watch and turn, listen, all 4 seasons, folks. Now you can watch this show. Most of it is free on Daily Motion. It's a couple commercials, just like regular TV, but they're going to give it to you free. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 and 4. It pretty much, like the young man was saying on the podcast, they're based on a true story podcast. That they pretty much follow it, but it's not following the years of the war. They're following actual facts that happen, which is great. events, and all the important things that the Culper Ring did that really shifted, um, and got us a lot, wins, or however you want to look at it. But it really worked into the George Washington's deception, and he really got involved. Wonderful, and his spy number was 711.
Oh,
And
go figure.
yeah, it was great. So if you're into gematria and all that stuff, and or spelling or any of that, this means something to you. And that's just another um, notch, I guess, on the old cherry tree for George Washington being, I think, a light worker. So that's another one of my things to bring in there. So listen, I want to say this and go out for anybody that is not tapping into our history event here and not understanding that there's multiple layers to this, that it's not just, hey, let's do history. It's not just that paranormal hooks into history. It's also throughout this entire event, Lynn and I have brought through the supernatural, the paranormal, the metaphysical. I actually have people that, are a little miffed at me because, I'm doing history on I said, listen, it's conspiracy, it's true crime, it's paranormal, supernatural, metaphysical. And if you're not getting it, you're missing it. You're looking at it wrong. You have a different vantage point, and that's cool. Well, but I understand. So you need to look at it differently because you're missing it. You're missing it. And it's a shame.
Also,
it's a shame.
It is. And also, a lot of what we currently have going on.
Yes, thank you.
Is similar to some of the things that were going on then. So, which I can't say because we're in fluff tube and I don't want to have them thrown off, but there definitely are some similarities there. So, talk about history repeating itself.
Honey, the parallels, I mean, and that's it too. I mean, I don't know what I did there.
I don't know why I sound hoarse.
I don't know. I don't know either. But it's it's okay. It's very Betty Davis. It's wonderful. You wear it well. I'm trying to stop the banner. Let me see here. Okay, I got it now. So that's it. There's multiple reasons to do this. It was also something to do this summer that we could all do together. It's very much to me like a book club, except I have to think of, my baseline is I want everybody to be included if they want to be. I don't want to say go buy a book that you can't afford. Not everybody can get to the library. Not everybody's going to go to Walmart or thrift store, whatever. And things can be expensive. Look, we're being duped every time you turn around. You can go to Amazon. I was looking up for an author I'm having on the show later, looking for a book. They wanted $200 something for the book that I know I can go to a thrift store and get for about $5. But Amazon, these different countries, these different scam things and stuff will put stuff out, and people buy stuff. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I don't know what's happening to this world, but that pendulum is swinging like a sumbitch, and so watch out and duck when it comes back through, because it's been proven in history, and our job here on this show, my job, because it's just me, folks, and the spirits, is to try to give you as much messaging as we possibly can to get through it, because every single light worker and whatever you want to say, star child or whatever, reincarnated soul, is here for a reason. And this gives you strength by looking back and seeing how other people got through drama, trauma, hell, absolute hell. This was not a happy time in history. And in any globe, any country around the globe, wherever you are in your own history, this is there. There was a time where people had enough, where people just couldn't go on, and they made a change. Is there a better way to do it? I think there is. I think Samuel Adams said it best. How do you get a people to stand and be emotional for things they are emotional about without tearing each other apart? And I think there's ways to do that. And I think you're seeing it around you. They're not advertising it. They're not putting that in your face, but you see it because you're light workers, and you're going to see the light, and you're going to be the light.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you for being here and being the light with this show. Thank you, Lynn. I love you so much, sweetheart. Well,
It's been a
we're going to
pleasure.
see
I
you
love
tomorrow
everybody.
night. Now, listen, if the Stocktons or if little man is on his way and the Stocktons can't be here tomorrow, we're just going to watch ghost shows and, and eat popcorn in our jammies. So if you want to be here tomorrow night and have popcorn in your jammies show, I be here at 8 o'clock tomorrow. And if Steve can be here, he might be in his jammies too. I can't promise. That's up to Nick. But I love you all. So listen, if you got the blues, kick off your shoes and dance the blues away. I love you. Good night, sweetheart. Good night, everybody.
Be the change that you want to see.
Be good humans. Be good humans. Be good humans.